as a college coach and a college GM, at the end of the day, it's not my money. I'm not going to be penny wise, pound foolish, but at the end of the day, man, like I want to spend the money because I want us to win. I want us to have success. I want us to build strong money. And guess what? We're going to learn about financial literacy. We're going to put that into the mix. You have to understand how this money manages, because you could set yourself up before you even leave college. There's so much opportunity, because again, 1% of you will make it to the league, and kudos to the guys that make it to the league, but 99% of you guys are not. But I can get you handsomely paid because you did an amazing job in college. So let's go. No Free Lunch is presented by T. Rowe Price. The information provided on this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial or legal advice. Always consult with a qualified financial and or legal professionals before making any legal or financial decisions or investments. I'm Ndamukong Suh, and welcome to No Free Lunch, where we talk to experts and athletes about how the most successful people in sports manage their money and grow their wealth. This summer, you probably heard about the House versus NCAA settlement, which took effect in June. It's one of the biggest changes in history of college sports. It means that for the first time, college and universities can pay athletes directly. Since 2021, athletes have been eligible to be paid for their name, image, and likeness. That's NIL, but only through collectives that are made up of boosters, fans, businesses, and alumni of a specific university. And athletes can still sign NIL deals outside of the university, but the new rules about school compensation have opened up a lot of questions. To help me break it all down, my producer Danny Sellers is here. So let's talk about it right here on No Free Lunch. Danny, welcome back, boss.
Happy to be here, man. It's that time of the year. The leaves are almost changing, you know.
It's almost fall, man. Almost fall. Football time is around.
I love it. I'm a college football guy personally, but I don't know about you, but I love a good Saturday, you know, college football, the morning show.
Care about one team, boss. One team only. Nebraska.
Well, look, a lot has happened this summer with athletes getting paid in college, essentially.
Yep.
There was a class action lawsuit, House versus NCAA, that settled and signed in June. Yep. And essentially now there's a soft cap. They're calling it a soft cap in college programs.
Cap, okay.
Right, exactly. You know the quote that, if you're hearing this, I'm using major air quotes, but it's a soft cap. That cap is about $20 million. I think specifically $20,500,000 per school. And the caveat is that it's spread across the whole, all sports essentially. So football, basketball, you know, soccer, etc. Yeah, it's interesting.
That's interesting from a standpoint of, you're saying $20.5 million each university has to spend, and they cannot exceed that. But you look at Michigan, and I think it's Underwood.
Yeah,
Bryce Underwood. Is he getting like 10 million? So he's got half the pot right there.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's essentially, the number was made. So it's a rev share that the schools are now allowed to participate in, and so it's gonna be a lot of, you know, interesting deals, I think, that are gonna come about of it, and we'll get into more of them. But Bryce is a good example of a kid that's not proven yet, you know, until recently this college season, got a major bag.
I would just say this. I mean, I don't know who's the governing body and who makes all the rules. I mean, I'd imagine the NCAA is in there somewhere in some form or fashion, so they feel relevant, even though I don't necessarily care for their rules and regulations, because when I was in college, NIL was not even allowed. But 10, 15 years later, you can now get paid for your name, image, and likeness. So like, it's very contradicting of their rules and very arbitrary of how they look at things. And if it pads their pockets or it doesn't pad their pockets, is kind of how I look at them as an entity at the end of the day, versus it being, all right, let's just say at minimum, you have to spread out $20 million. But there's some universities that have other opportunities to gain more dollars, just like in the NFL or NBA. There's better markets than other markets, whether that's, again, Portland is not considered a great market for the Portland Trailblazers compared to LA. This team is coined to be sold for $4.2 billion versus the LA Lakers were sold for $10 billion. Like, you should give a higher value. There should be more opportunity to spend more money inside the city of LA. Also, it's more expensive to live there than it is to live in Portland. But I mean, there's so many different factors that go into this. This $20.5 million, it seems like it was just thrown out of thin air. But I'd love to understand the methodology in and around how they got to that number. And then to say that has to go across all sports, like that's a hard press for me to see that as fair. And not even just from a football perspective or basketball perspective. Let's look at the University of Nebraska or Stanford or Penn State, where their women's volleyball teams are elite. They pay for themselves. They make money as their own situation and their own teams within the university. So why are you putting a cap on them? Like, so it's a double-edged sword. And I'm sure Title IX is going to be in here in some part of this conversation at the end of the day. But again, I mean, I really don't care until my kids become of age. And then hopefully that $20.5 million is more like 60.5 or 80 or 100 million.
Yeah, the settlement is a 10-year settlement, and I think it goes up incrementally every year, like 4% or so. So it'll be a marginal change.
Have they factored in anything into this? Like, I'm trying to understand, like, how do you just come up with $20.5 million as this is the number we're going to start with?
Yeah, the reasoning of how they got the number, it represents 22% of the average athletic department revenue across power conference schools. So all the power conference schools is 22% of the revenue, and they're now able to participate, the players, in rev share.
Why isn't it 50%?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Right.
Let's cut in half. Like, why is it 22.5% or 22%? Like, that right there, like, I'm poking holes in what's the reasoning for that? Because, I mean, let's just call a spade. Where's the other 78% going to?
Right.
Where's that
exactly
going? Let me know where that money is going to. Whose pockets are getting paid off of those?
The interesting caveat here, also another one, is that the players can still make money via NIL collectives. They just now have to go through a clearinghouse called NIL Go. And so anything over $600, they have to then go through this clearinghouse. I know when you played and I played, there was like an NCAA clearinghouse and compliance you had to go through to be eligible. So
compliance people I did not care for, because they were like, you're trying to get us in trouble? Like, what's the deal? Like, you're supposed to be a part of you're inside the university, but you're also just firing bullets off trying to take people out. Like, that to me makes no sense. But hey, man, somebody has to do it. It's their job. I wouldn't sign up for it.
No, especially at a big school where, you really are talking about millions of dollars. Like when I was playing, it was, an extra couple $100 to help somebody move. It's like, is this too much? $1,000 to move a couch? Like, is that too much? So players like yourself, I'm sure there's was way bigger problems they had to deal with, to make sure Ndamukong was eligible.
So you said it was NIL Go?
Yeah, NIL Go. It's governed by the College Sports Commission. It's like a newly spun up commission off of this settlement that's going to help govern all these NIL deals. So NIL Go, it's essentially ran or spun up by the College Sport Commission and Deloitte. So they got it in place to help manage NIL Go and all that kind of stuff.
I would love to see that platform. I want to play on the platform, man. I want to see if can I still get some NIL deals? I'm ready to go. Do I have 5th year eligibility? I need some COVID eligibility.
It's a lot of 7-year guys still playing.
So you got $20.5 million that each university gets for their athletic program that the school can pay that out. Now the collectives can have $100 million, $200 million in a year that they can pay out, but they have to justify it through NIL Go.
Yes.
Which is this governing body that says, hey, you can't give Joe Blow $10 million for taking your daughter on a date to her prom, and
Right.
he's a quarterback of the University of Tennessee or whatever it is, even though in your brain and it's your money as you're the donor and whatever business you're working on, like say, for instance, I wanted to give a fleet of Mercedes or Toyotas or whatever it may be. I have to get that approved by NIL Go. I can't just do that quote unquote under the table anymore, as it's been the wild, wild west, for lack of better words, the last how many ever years of NIL.
Yeah, essentially, yeah, they're really there to install a fair rate, a fair market rate per these services. So, yeah, your example, taking someone's child to prom or a couple social posts, you can't give them $1 million. Which, to your point, if your worth is what someone's willing to pay. So if I'm willing to pay somebody $1 million to do a commercial or something for a day, then maybe that's my prerogative. But that is an interesting caveat of this whole deal, is how strict that governing piece will be in NIL Go.
So who is paying for that NIL Go? I'm always curious. So who's behind that business and who's getting the benefits there?
In my research, I did not uncover that. I know it was in practice with Deloitte helped spin this up. So I think there was a lot of money made, of course, with the big consulting firms. They're going to get their cut to make sure that the things are running smoothly. But I'm sure throughout it all, it was on the NCAA's benefit, or it was in the NCAA's interest to make sure that cut of rev share wasn't too much. To your point, instead of it being 50 or 45 or 55, let's give them a little 22% of the average, and then for the next 10 years, we'll only increase it 4%. So it's going to only be a small incremental marginal change that's probably barely keeping up with inflation.
Again, I'm not in college football. I'm not in college sports right now as we speak, but I do not believe this is going to bring parity to college football or college sports at all. I think what it's going to do is just going to make it more confusing, more complicated, and more brain damage, as I like to call it, throughout the entire sphere of college sports. I think there just needs to be something very streamlined. And again, I think what's going to make the most sense is probably taking the model of having a CBA and guys and girls coming together as a union and making these decisions. And you hate to put people on opposite sides of the table because it's college sports and you don't see it as professional sports just yet, but we got to have some collective agreement that is fair on both sides. And I just don't, with the numbers that you're telling me of 22%, that's just pulled out of thin air. And now we got to go through NIL Go to make things fair. Like the quarterback from Arkansas and the quarterback from the University of Nebraska and the University of Michigan are not all equal. They're all in different markets. They all have different fan bases. They all have different type of boosters and businesses that run and operate in and around them. Like Nebraska could have a crazy unfair advantage if they really wanted to. And one of the richest people in the world that is up north in Omaha, if he really wants to get into the game, we can make it unfair. Like we'll make it unfair if you really want to make it unfair. But like that's for people to make on their own decisions of how they want to support their team, just like they support their facilities and they support the things that make them want to be a part of that university. And they have the want to because it's a part of them as an individual. Like I am beholden to Nebraska because that is a part of who I am as a man and how I grew up as an individual. And I owe them a lot, vice versa. I feel like they owe me a lot at the same time. So it's a give and take from that perspective. But again, I mean, you have these arbitrary things that just pop out of thin air and say, all right, you can only spend $20.5 million for this year.
Yeah, it's super interesting. I mean, the Bryce Underwood kid, I think that was a lot of that was Mr. Ross, pulling the levers to get that done at Michigan. So yeah, it is interesting. And to your point earlier about Title IX and how some of these schools will use the money, like I'm curious what your thoughts are about like basketball schools. We talk a lot about, football on our show a little bit, but like how does a Kentucky or Duke who maybe doesn't care as much about football, but are powers in basketball, or even like a Villanova is probably a better example.
Or
There's football teams
Syracuse back in the day.
FCS.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. Like, I think college basketball, you're now limiting those guys. And guess what? They have less players.
Right.
So they should potentially get more dollars.
Yeah.
And they have more visibility. A football player, it's just no, period, point blank. A basketball player in college and a football player in college, who has more visibility? It's a no-brainer.
Right.
It's a basketball player. So I can do more with that potential athlete until this college football player or whatever it may be has a way to give themselves more visibility, or they do something that gives them more visibility versus a basketball player. So it's already capping some of the people that have unfair advantage. You come out, like, imagine if Zion's coming out of high school again, you have it like, you're now capping him. Like, no, you give him as much as possible to him and his family. Like, he was a superstar and then translated that and went to pro basketball right thereafter. So to me, it's like, it doesn't make sense to have these limits on them. And they're going to say, oh, there's no limits, but there is a limit because you're putting this soft cap in there. People are going to try and abide by those different things and go from there. So I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting concept. And I think rather than me poking holes, I would like to find a solution that makes sense. And that does provide parity through everything here in college sports from that standpoint.
Well, I like the example of, the basketball schools, whatever, but like a Title IX specifically, like women's sports. There's some schools where the women's sports are dominant and they might be the best team on campus, like Stanford women's volleyball or, arguably Penn State women's volleyball. Like how that'll affect those all-star players and the recruiting is they're going to see more dollars coming from this rev share deal or not, or like a softball at UCLA even. Like, I think it's an interesting strategy that these compliance officers and even athletic departments will have to figure out, I think.
Yeah, and I think there's going to be pushback on this, and I hope there is in some form or fashion. That's more advocates for the players and whatnot, for them to be able to have, instead of 22%, let's get to 50, let's get to 60%. Yeah. Like in the NFL, like you look at it, like you've got to spend. I think teams are now, they got to spend up to like 80 or 95% of the cap. And whatnot, because there may be some schools saying, oh, well, that's if 20 and a half is our limit, let's just stay at 10 and just keep the rest for ourselves. What's on the flip side of them saying, all right, we're just going to keep it low just because we want to keep it low. And everybody gets a minimum check and then that's it. I mean, not saying that that's going to hurt or help their overall success, because yes, people are going to follow the money and want to be able to be handsomely paid. But not everybody's going to have that opportunity.
I want to get into the free agency of it all, quote unquote. Now we're getting to a whole different ball game of what transferring means and the free agency and how different it is in pro sports or not. And one deal that popped up that's interesting, that was recent, Texas Tech signed an offensive tackle, Felix Ojo. And he's a top 10 recruit, number one tackle, just big time star. And he signed a 3-year, fully guaranteed, I think 2.3 is the number. And it's one of these first of its kind revenue sharing kind of contracts. So one thing that's interesting to me initially is 3-year deal, multi-year contract. I think typically we're thinking when these players join these teams is on a 1-year basis. Like back in the day when I was playing, you get a scholarship. Technically, it's a 1-year contract and you sign that deal every year. So as a player, if you were Ndamukong Suh at Nebraska, would you sign a multi-year deal, or would you try to do a year by year to see if you can gain leverage every offseason?
It's an interesting question, because you're asking me, in other words, do I bet on myself or do I lock in security? And from that standpoint, yes, I think you can do both. I think you can lock in security but also bet on yourself. And I don't know what the rules and repercussions may be of saying, hey, I want to get out of this deal. Or you start having kids hold out. Like, yeah, I signed this 3-year deal, but I want to renegotiate it. Like, I just had the best career of my best year of my career. Like,
right.
And it's year 2. So you're getting me pennies on the dollars. Like, I think it's around $750 or $760,000 a year that Felix signed. Yeah. And well, no, I'm now in my 3rd year. I want a base minimum of 1.5 or $1 million. Right. I want an increase of 250 to whatever it is, whatever the increase is from that standpoint. So why can't I come back and renegotiate that deal? Or we can say we have a 3-year deal and we have to mutually agree to this each year. So in principle, this is kind of our base, but I have an opportunity to grow and excel, especially like after year 1, if like I do what I'm supposed to do and I've been able to, there should be triggers to say, hey, I can now get to my base being 1.5. I remember my rookie contract in pros is like, hey, if you make the Pro Bowl, aka if he makes, I don't know what conference Texas Tech is in, but I mean,
Big 12,
I'm assuming they're in the Big 12 still.
Yeah.
But hey, I make all Big 12. Well, now my base is not 750, 760. It is $1 million. It's right. $2 million because I had these accolades. So that's how I would probably look at a multi-year deal and structure. And then, hey, for instance, like say Texas Tech, great year. He loses all his teammates that are part of his cohesiveness because it's ultimate. Right. Football is the ultimate team game. Yeah, I want to trade and go somewhere else. Like, can he be traded and can that deal go with him if the other school agrees to that? And then what's the compensation for Texas Tech if he leaves and whatnot? Is there a buyout clause? How does that all work?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of nuances that go into it. This is where the collective bargaining piece comes into play, in my opinion.
The buyout part is interesting because it's happened recently with Arkansas quarterback Madden Iamaleava. He transferred to UCLA. His brother Nico also transferred to UCLA from Tennessee, and Arkansas, their NIL collective had a buyout clause where he had to pay a couple $100,000 back. They're trying to get that $100,000 back from him leaving prematurely. So it's school by school. It's not like, to your point about I get traded and then my contract is valid for multiple teams. Like if you leave this school within the time in which we are still paying you, or you owe us money, or you maybe got a signing bonus or whatever, we need that bread back. So it's going to be interesting the amount of transfers we see or don't see if these multi-year deals continue.
And to be fair, I wouldn't have a problem with a buyout clause in that situation, but it has to be circumstantial. Am I just leaving because I want to leave? Or like, again, I would translate this to probably basketball overseas, which is kind of where we're similarly at this like, it's kind of ungoverned. There's some rules and some guidelines in and around it. But like, hey, if you want to leave this team, like I could think of this, like you had a European basketball player that has getting 500,000 or $1 million or whatever it is. And then you have China, especially if you know overseas basketball, China will just pay an American, especially that's elite, just to come over there like $1.5 million. So sometimes those European teams have buyout clauses and they have the right to block them to not have to do that. So again, it's every deal has to kind of be on its own. But do you want to have some sort of streamlining between the across the board in college football, college sports, just in general? So I think that's where, again, we go back to the collective bargaining side of things of saying, let's make it an even playing field for the most part, but it has to be done case by case.
Yeah, I think that's the key, is having some governing CBA for the players to be able to move around either freely and even, give some protection to the schools if they need it to a degree. Let's put on Ndamukong GM hat for a second.
Okay. Yeah.
This is interesting. When I was, prepping for this, I'm thinking of a GM of an NFL team of like, all right, I draft a rookie quarterback. Say I'm the 49ers a couple of years ago with Brock Purdy, or even now the Commanders with Jalen. Like, all right, I got this young rookie guy who's a leader, who's going to show promise or showing promise, who can take us maybe close to the promised land on a rookie deal for an extreme discount. This is my opportunity to build a team around him, even like Russell Wilson back in the day with those Seahawks team. Like, this is a guy that we can go on a run with. Now in college football, you see a lot of these big time quarterbacks are getting the bag. You know, the Underwood kid, a freshman coming in, Carson Beck got a crazy bag with Miami, so on and so on. So if you're a GM, just methodology wise, how would you build your team? Say you're a GM of Nebraska. Would you go and try to find that big time 5-star quarterback and blow half year or a quarter of your rev share budget on one person, or do you bet on kind of developing a guy?
I'm big on development, and there's no draft, for lack of better words, in college football. But let's build through the right recruiting and making sure every single player on my team has some sort of NIL dollars. It would be my opinion. So let's build the foundation. Everybody's getting some sort of payment at the end of the day, because one, I want you all to get paid and get paid handsomely based on the production that you're doing. And that's what you've done for me lately, and how you're continuing to be help growing this organization and this team is going to be how you're technically paid. It's not all about pay. There's other intangible things that I need you to be able to do for us to be successful as a team, and why you'd be the highest paid. Yes, you're going to look at the quarterback to be a part of that, but I also needed a face of the defense and a face of special teams and things of those natures. So I'm spreading it all across, and I'm looking at potentially 2-year deals for guys to say, hey, here, I'm going to give you some security, and we'll have optionality on both sides to move into another year. And then you should be betting on yourself. So if you're going to come back for a 3rd and 4th year and play all 4 years of your college eligibility, hey man, you should be betting on yourself. I want to pay you more, because guess what? The more success you have, the more success we have as a team, the more collectively we can go out to these businesses and make money. It's a win-win situation all around. Like, as a college coach and a college GM, at the end of the day, it's not my money. I'm not going to be penny wise, pound foolish, but at the end of the day, man, like, I want to spend the money because I want us to win. I want us to have success. I want us to build strong money. And guess what? We're going to learn about financial literacy. We're going to put that into the mix. You have to understand how this money manages, because you could set yourself up before you even leave college. There's so much opportunity, because again, 1% of you will make it to the league, and kudos to the guys that make it to the league, but 99% of you guys are not. But I can get you handsomely paid because you did an amazing job in college. So let's go.
Yeah. That is the difference. Yeah, I was there's this article, ESPN surveyed 20 college GMs, like the average cost or the running rate for like star players, so to speak, or high quality players. I mean, a quarterback, $1 to $2 million a year, a running back, like 300 to 700,000, edge rushers, which is, I think, just as important.
DNs
on the defensive. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
At least, $500,000 to $1 million as well. So like kind of, rivaling the cost of what a high quality quarterback would cost, for, 1-to-1. So you're talking about real money, to your point. And I think that is the financial literacy part is also important too, because, back in the day, it's, you might get a couple $100 from a Pell Grant or whatever. And it's like, you're not coming out of school with necessarily that cash, but you might not get drafted, but you could graduate with $500,000 in your bank account. That's real bread that you need to know how to,
And you're set up. Like, I mean, there's a lot of people in this world that don't even make 6 figures.
Right.
Like,
you're 21, 22 years old.
On an annual basis, there's I don't know how many people make over 6 figures in this world, but I'd be very curious to what that percentage is, because these college athletes have a great opportunity to be set up for life.
Yeah, I think I was looking it up. It's like just over 30% of Americans make 6 figures. So, 2/3 of folks in the country don't.
Yeah. And I mean, and it's not cheap to live in certain places. I mean, I can think of my little sister right now living in Austin. She's making 6 figures and she still has to rent. Like, it's not just because you're making 6 figures doesn't mean that you hit a home run.
No, it ain't what it used to. Trust me. Living in New York City, I know.
Think about that and the opportunity that you have there. So again, like, I want to pay you guys. I want you guys to be as successful as you can as a collective group. So let's have a baseline. And then, I mean, let's just call a spade a spade. There's a totem pole in this thing. There's certain guys that are going to get certain dollars, and there's certain guys that are going to get in between that. And there's certain guys that are just going to get the base. And that's how, can you accept your role and then build upon your role and your expectations for you to get to the next level? Again, I am happy to pay you whatever I can, but it has to be for the collective success of what we're trying to build here. And we're setting you up for the future, not only in sports, but also in life and in business. Because think of it from this perspective. I went to the University of Nebraska. One of our biggest boosters for in college, not sports, is Kiewit construction.
Okay.
I was in construction management engineering. I graduated. Why would I not roll out? If I didn't go to the pros, why would I not roll out and leverage that relationship? Because guess what? The College of Engineering was built by Kiewit. And that's one of the biggest engineering firms. So in the country, I have that relationship. Like I can roll into a 6-figure, 7-figure job right there with those guys.
Right.
So those are the things that we got to start to think about. It's not just about sports, but it is. It's a conduit to reach success in so many different ways.
Even now more than ever, with the money that's attached to it. Last GM Ndamukong question, you talked about the 2-year deal and kind of giving guys security. We've seen schools, with NIL, new coaches coming in and kind of reflip the rosters, right? Deion at Colorado, or even Coach Belichick this season with UNC. I saw that they
Coach
had
Belichick is struggling, boss. He's not used to getting his head knocked off.
Right. The ACC said, is welcome, but nonetheless, 70 new players on the roster this year, which is a lot. You're talking about a roster of maybe 100 players, give or take. So as you're building a team, how important is that to minimize that turnover per year from just maybe a culture standpoint? Like the dollars are there, but that's a lot of people.
Yeah, it's tough. And you got to give somewhat a little bit of leeway for Coach Belichick and Coach Sanders, just from the standpoint of they have a methodology and they have a way of building their teams. Obviously, probably on 2 different spectrums, on opposite sides. And so from that standpoint, I need some time to build that. And Coach Belichick, I think, was behind the 8 ball, not giving him an excuse because, you start a new team every single year in the NFL. So it's like you have a little bit of an advantage, especially if you're in college football. You can build a foundation, have guys there 3-4 years deep. NFL, that's not necessarily the case in a lot of ways. And so you got to find and build that nucleus. Can you do that in a summer and a spring? Yes, but there's continuity and things that go into all those different things. So he had to come in there, evaluate his current talent, and then plug holes. And can you plug those holes fast enough for you to be prepared for fall? But Coach Sanders, he should be starting to look to start peaking because I think this is his 2nd or 3rd year in Colorado. So he's had 2 football seasons to set up. Hey, this is how we get down. This is how we function. And yes, he lost his star quarterback and all those different things in his son and some key pieces and Travis Hunter and some of those other pieces. But while you had those stars, you should have been building some guys underneath them that are going to come replace them. So that is the difference between those 2 guys, in my opinion, right now. Whereas that culture should be already there with Coach Sanders. Coach Belichick, he may need a whole season to get to where he wants to be. Or you may, he's made magic in hay with a lot less in pro football, but guys are a little bit more mature and all those different things. He's still dealing with young kids and young minds and boys at the end of the day. Their maturity levels are a little slower to come around from that standpoint. So it may take him a year where he gets his head knocked off and then he bounces back. But could he halfway through the season have a core group of guys that he can rely on saying, hey, let's finish out this year strong. We're still going to make a bowl game. And next year we're going to go try and take over the ACC and then get into the championship round of things.
Yeah, it's long story short, I'm excited about the football season. I think there's a lot of parity. I'm personally excited about the rest of the season in college football.
Yeah,
All right,
man.
cool.
I'm looking forward to it as well. It's time for the Confidently Curious question, where we ask questions that are one step ahead. Sponsored by Piro, where they believe that asking better questions can lead to better outcomes. So my Confidently Curious question of the day is, what describes a belief or expectation that a stock's price will rise? A, bearish, B, greenish, C, bullish. The answer is C, bullish. A stock is considered bullish when there's an optimistic outlook about its performance in the future. I like that. I have been bullish about some stocks myself. I think over the years, I've been bullish in and around Nike stock, especially with this new CEO and my guy, Elliott Hill. But I mean, ultimately, I think you got to be optimistic about different opportunities that come across your table. And I'm optimistic about some interesting investments that I've made recently that will, in my opinion, be bullish in the AI space. That's our Confidently Curious question for the week. Thanks to our sponsor, T. Rowe Price, for modeling the power of better questions and their approach to making better investment decisions. T. Rowe Price proudly sponsors No Free Lunch. The views expressed in this podcast are those of the podcast participants and do not necessarily reflect those of T. Rowe Price. Their sponsorship supports the platform and does not imply endorsement of specific content or perspectives. Man, Danny, I'm excited about this football season. I know it's already underway. So I think my biggest takeaway is, man, we got to reshape college football. We got to figure out how we can have some collective agreement that is fair on both sides for the players, the universities, and figure out something that makes the most sense for everybody. Maybe I'll come up with something out of thin air that makes sense versus this 22%, which I don't think makes any sense. But hey, that's just me outside looking in at the end of the day. Like, comment, subscribe to No Free Lunch on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts.